Aero is a term that gets thrown around an awful lot these days. If you've ever ridden in a draft, you know that better aerodynamics is a good thing. But one frustrating thing about aero is that it's awfully hard to quantify. In launching the new Venge ViAS, Specialized gave me and 11 other journalists the chance to test the bike in their wind tunnel and with some high-level data modeling thanks to McLaren Applied Technologies. So our test consisted of 3 main parts. 1, measuring the drag of the bike and rider in the wind tunnel. 2, using that data plus real-world measurements to plug into McLaren's sophisticated modeling software. And then 3, taking a sweet ride in the Santa Cruz Mountains. So what is this model? Modeling means looking at all the parts of the physics equation. If a rider and bike weighs such and such, can put out X amount of watts, has a rolling resistance of Y, an aerodynamic drag of Z, and is rolling straight on a dead flat road with 0 wind, then how fast will it go? Now this is a highly simplified model, as McLaren can look at thousands of changing factors from wind speed on a course to temperature to braking impacts and on and on and on. We went into the wind tunnel with the Venge wearing a skin suit and an aero road helmet and took the drag of that setup while pedaling for 60 seconds. We did the same thing on a tarmac, but with a standard bibs, jersey, regular helmet. Again, took the average of the drag for 60 seconds. Before heading out on the road to test, we weighed each setup: bike, rider, gear, shoes, helmet, even the full water bottle. Specialized already had the rolling resistance of each of the 2 tire setups we had recorded. This, plus the weight, plus the drag, was plugged into McLaren's model. Before we went out, 2 McLaren staffers, along with a person from Specialized Racing, drove the course, recording air density, wind direction, wind speed all the way around the course, and entered that data into the model, along with the GPS file, including elevation changes. We rode a 20K time trial on each of the setups. Now we were told to hold the same position as we did in the wind tunnel to keep our drag as consistent as possible. Once both runs were done, McLaren took the file from the Garmin Edge and used the data there to validate their model, meaning they looked at what I actually did versus what their model had predicted that I did. Once that data lined up, then they stripped out everything except the power file from one of the runs and applied that to both. The model found the difference between the aero setup and the standard setup to be 142 seconds. The average for the 12 riders tested was 120 seconds, with larger riders usually showing a little more of a gain. It really was pretty fascinating to see exactly how and where the aero setup was faster. Some, as I noticed when riding, the downhills is where the aero setup really excelled. On the short climb, the model showed the 2 setups to be basically identical. Had the course been a hill climb, of course, we'd end up with something very different. But on this day, with about 64 meters or 200 feet of elevation gain, aero ruled the day. The final part of the test was a good old-fashioned big ride, where Specialized took us up into the Santa Cruz Mountains for about 6,200 feet or 1,900 meters of climbing. Not really what you'd expect to showcase an aero bike. On one 6-mile descent, Strava reinforced what the McLaren model had already shown. This bike goes fast downhill. Uploading the file to Strava that night, the ride showed a KOM for that 6-mile descent. Typically when we review a road bike, we talk a lot about feel. This bike feels fast, it feels stiff, it feels agile. This is important. How a bike feels is how you experience it day in and day out. But with this Venge ViAS, it was cool to be able to go to the wind tunnel, to do the McLaren modeling, and to come away with a real quantifiable sense of how much faster this bike is.